Hi, everyone. My name is Ricardo Guzman, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us at this meeting today. Hopefully, this is going to be a short one. It was actually shortened to just deliver you the exact information you need to understand the subject and the purpose of the session. The meeting will be conducted by Angelica Mendoza, who is Angie for us, and is also an essential member of our business development team. She will be speaking plenty about medical, legal, and customer safety reasons for providing a good quality language access program. And we expect that you discover some relevant facts, figures, and legal explanations, as well as some guidance that will help you create a unique language access program. In fact, we actually hope that you get to know that our tech can firmly support all your language limitation needs. As said in the invitation, Angie will speak of the compliance with local, state, and federal laws and the advantages of having a budget-effective language access program with the Trust LSP. LSP is short for Language Services Provider. At last, we believe that it is better to come with someone able to support all your language limitation needs instead of having to look for a different solution every time a need of this kind arises. And this should be it for a brief introduction, and now I'll leave you all with Angie. And thanks again for joining us.
Hello, all. As my colleague Ricardo mentioned, my name is Angelica, Business Development Manager for Effective, and I will be your webinar host today. Thank you all for your attention. This presentation is another installment in a series of informational webinars provided by Effective. Throughout this presentation, we will explore how post-pandemic language access has dynamically changed the interpretation model, as well as a benefit analysis of utilizing our technological advances to move at the speed of light with language access as a result of the pandemic and the tools required for immediate, touchless language access. So, let us get the proverbial language tech ball rolling. A few details of note about our language tech company. We host a full suite of language access services, which include translation, localization, machine translation, on-site interpretation, language assessments, and last, but certainly not least, over-the-phone interpreting, or OPI, and VRI, video remote interpreting. OPI and VRI will be our main topics of discussion today, and how these specific service lines can assist your organization in maintaining compliance and mitigating risk in order to fulfill your Title VI and ACA 1557 obligations. Our dynamic partnerships allow Effective to create both language and financial solutions for the complex and the nuanced needs of each of our unique clients. My conscientious audience, I invite you to learn and engage a bit with one another. I'd like to ask each of you to participate in our poll via the Q&A button. Question 1, what is the name of your company? Feel free to click on that Q&A button and type it in. Thank you for your feedback in advance. Let us move on now. I'd like to present our agenda for today. Now, let us continue to engage with one another since you're already hitting that Q&A button. Question 2. What is your current role within your company? What is your current role within your company? I'm excited to learn more about you. I'm going to give us again some time to finish this inquiry. Also, in the meantime, should you have any questions during the presentation, you can ask them by typing them in the Q&A option as well. We will answer some of them in the background, and we'll dedicate more time to this in the end, of course, during the Q&A session. However, don't hesitate to type your question during the webinar. So please keep that in mind. Now, let us transition to a quick overview of the history of Title VI. Don't worry, there will not be a test at the end of my history lessons. In fact, this is food for thought and contemplation regarding your current state of language access solutions. Title VI prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in any program or activity that receives federal funds or other federal financial assistance. Protecting civil rights. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act was enacted as a legal obligation to all organizations in 1964. To repeat, this is a federally enacted law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in all programs or activities receiving federal funding. Does this apply to you? The short answer is yes. The Supreme Court, the highest court in our land, has established, quote, an implied private right of action, end quote, under Title VI, leaving it, quote, beyond dispute that private individuals may sue, end quote, in order to address allegations of intentional discrimination. Well, what does this mean? This means that failing to provide an interpreter unrelated to the employee or client or patient or student or parent or caregiver is a violation of Title VI, leaving your organization at risk for legal action. Oftentimes, bilingual staff members or bilingual children or relatives are summoned to take on this task of interpreting appointments or translating documents. This is also a risk factor. Why? Because of terminology, because they have other job duties and responsibilities that must be placed on hold in order to support. Because by law, it is not their responsibility to interpret or translate unless it is explicitly stated in their job description. And it is certainly not the responsibility of a family member, especially a child, to interpret or translate information, as they will be completely socially biased and, in some situations, traumatized from interpreting difficult situations, such as end of life, for example. This is how organizations place themselves at risk for legal action against them. The understanding of instructions, of unique topics, and health information is a basic common human right. Could you imagine yourself or your child depending on interpretation or translation services from someone that simply kind of speaks the language without knowing the context or terminology required to efficiently create a bridge of understanding? I ask that you simply contemplate this reality, which is all too common and risky for all parties. Let us unpack and understand the similarities that echo Title VI in regard to ACA 1557. Section 1557 of the Affordable Care Act has been in effect since the enactment of the ACA in 2010, and the HHS office, or United States Department of Health and Human Services for Civil Rights, or OCR, and has been enforcing this provision since it was enacted. Section 1557 builds on prior federal civil rights laws to prohibit sex discrimination in healthcare. ACA 1557 was enacted in March of 2010. The Comprehensive Healthcare Reform Law, enacted in March 2010, sometimes known as ACA, PPACA, or Obamacare. The law has three primary goals: make affordable health insurance available to more people. The law provides consumers with subsidies, premium tax credits that lower costs for households with incomes between 100% and 400% of the federal poverty level, or FPL. If your income is above 400% FPL, you may still qualify for the premium tax credit in 2022. If your income is at or below 150% FPL, you may qualify to enroll in or change marketplace coverage through a special enrollment period. Expansion of the Medicaid program to cover all adults with income below 138% of the FPL. However, not all states have expanded their Medicaid programs. Support innovative medical care delivery methods designed to lower the costs of healthcare generally. This is where effective comes in to assist in the obligation of service requirements. Accreditation. Section 1557 ensures that those who speak limited English or are variants of the following: sex and gender, LGBTQ, race, ethnicity, disability, stereotyping, and religion. This applies to healthcare as well as other corporate activities. Failure to provide this adequate support places your organization at risk for legal action. Let me provide you with a case study that effectively provides a real-life example of the detrimental effects of lacking appropriate interpretation. In the state of Tennessee, it was reported that a federal lawsuit against Park West Hospital and Covenant Health alleged that a deaf patient could have avoided a partial leg amputation if the hospital provided him with a live in-person interpreter. During several visits back in the year of 2017. Per the news report, it was stated the deaf patient had fallen and went to Park West Hospital in Knoxville in October of 2017 because the man was experiencing numbness and pain in both his right leg and his foot. The deaf man requested an interpreter, but the hospital did not provide one. The deaf man's leg was x-rayed and he was sent home with an antibiotic and ibuprofen. Subsequently, his leg was later partially amputated. A grave situation, which could have easily been avoided with the support of a certified deaf interpreter. The lawsuit this gentleman proclaimed against the providers sought compensatory damages and attorney fees from the two medical centers for violations of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, or ACA 1557, which requires hospitals to provide interpreting services. The risk of legal action for failure to provide competent and trained interpreters is a very real reality all organizations should seriously contemplate. Language access allows limited English proficient, or LEP individuals, to access a wide range of services as defined by the U.S. Department of Justice, or the DOJ. LEP individuals are persons who do not speak English as their primary language and who may have a limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English. What to do in order to create a proper roadmap of a language access program, you ask? Well, there are various factors that apply here, all of which Effective is well-versed and experienced in assisting with the following, and I will list. Identifying who will implement the plan in your organization. Creating a notice of explaining language assistance. Training of staff on policies and procedures for utilization. Identifying procurement and budgetary oversight issues. Monitoring existing policies and procedures put in place. Describing benchmarks and objectives of SOPs or standard operating procedures. Identification of LEPs in your existing community. Collaborating with LEPs and language service providers, or LSPs, such as Effective. Do you remember how the pandemic affected our lives? Do you remember how it personally affected you? Well, how could we possibly forget? So how were we able to adapt? Well, there are various scenarios that we can all look back on and contemplate as far as opportunities for telemedicine, including OPI and VRI technology, and video conferencing for medical, education, religious services, HR appointments, and other varying industry essentials during the trying times we all underwent. Let us outline a few scenarios that fit in these parameters. To list, a patient experienced respiratory issues and was unable to visit the emergency room due to overwhelming demand. A person had no symptoms of COVID-19, but was exposed by a friend or family member. A patient with chronic illness was unable to be seen by their physician. Perhaps a provider, educator, or human resources staff contracted COVID-19 and was unable to physically see the patient or the client or the employee or the student. A person who had severe COVID-19 symptoms and was not able to visit with a provider in person, and telemedicine was the only option. An LEP student was not able to engage with his or her education provider due to remote education. So what was the workaround to continue to engage in our society and globally during the pandemic? Do you remember? Well, the answer is remote telephonic and remote video communications, modalities for which Effective has been a technological solution, both pre and post pandemic. Let's dive into OPI. What is OPI? Well, OPI allows the service of interpreting as a service that allows all subject matter conversations to flow in a myriad of languages as a result of an interpreter being able to connect via a three-way call. The paramount technology in which Effective specializes will allow your organization to be able to connect to an interpreter in over 200 languages, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. What is VRI? Well, similar to OPI, its cousin, if you will. VRI allows the service of interpreting as a service that allows all subject matter conversations to flow in a myriad of languages as a result of an interpreter being able to connect via a three-way call but this time via video. This technology is of prime importance as it allows for facial, social, and cultural cues to be captured, thus resulting in a full, comprehensive understanding of the interpreting services needed at hand by a subject matter expert. Once again, effective, and our technological specialization will allow your organization to be able to connect to an interpreter in over 200 languages, including ASL, within 30 seconds or less, at the speed of light. As a society, we learned that there are means and ways to circumvent the ability to connect in a face-to-face manner, that we, as humans, are resilient and responsible for our own well-being by utilizing the modern technology we all harness in our smartphones, our tablets, our laptops, and our computers. Effective is your one-stop shop for communicating with your population, utilizing our cutting-edge technology. As Effective is a global organization that knows no boundaries, we are able to provide a seamless integration for our telephonic and video modalities that we have all become accustomed to post-pandemic. Being device agnostic, our unified platform allows for access on all smartphones, tablets, desktops, and laptops all the world around. I invite you to reach out to me for additional information, as I know this technology benefits all levels of individuals and industries. Now, we have arrived to the Q&A portion of this webinar. I will allow a few minutes for inquiries to be sent via the Q&A button. Should we run out of time, you may also message me directly at the information located in this slide. I'll go ahead and give us a few minutes. All right, I would like to thank you all for your time. Would you like to suggest new topics for our informational webinars? Let us know by messaging myself or our global email, info@effective.com. Thank you for your interest in Effective, and have a wonderful rest of your day up ahead.